Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Noah, and today we will be reviewing my 2004 Volvo S60R. And let's get started on the exterior. This car was designed in the 2000s. After the 90s, when Volvos were very boxy, they morphed into this P2 generation where they started getting all these curves. If you look along the front here, you can see the bumper got nice curves. In the older cars, they used to be more boxy. Coming around, front grille, bi-xenon headlights, and halogen turn signals, and halogen fog lights below. Moving along to the other side of the car, we have 18-inch wheels with 235/45 section tires with 18-inch wheels. And we have 4-piston Brembo calipers. And moving along the side here, nice low roof line with a nice sloping curve. Makes this car look very aerodynamic. And also, Volvo was pretty conservative with these cars, which meant they aged very well. And as you can see, nice short wheelbase for good handling and a nice short rear overhang. And moving around to the rear, we have Volvo's signature taillights. And this car has been debadged, but normally you'll find an S60 badge R all-wheel drive. And that's it for the exterior. Welcome to the interior of the S60R, and this is obviously where I spend most of my time. This interior color is known as Nordcap, and you can get 3 interior color options with this car. This is my personal favorite, as I am a huge fan of blue, and it doesn't look bad when worn out, unlike the Gobi, the beige, or the Atacama, the orange. So we have here a leather-wrapped 3-spoke steering wheel with volume and changer controls, which I like. We have a blinker stalk on the left, automatic wipers, and a nice little display here on the left side in the gauge cluster. Headlight switch, lower left, gas tank, fog lights. One of my favorite features of the R is the blue gauge cluster. That sets it apart from all the other P2 platform models. They're blue-faced and it's actual metal. And when at nighttime, this is front lit, and the rest of the gauge is backlit, which is pretty cool. And now, moving on to the R's party trick, active chassis settings. So, this car has what's called the 4C suspension, which means the suspension can change stiffness, and it's adaptive too, so it reads the road 500 times a second. You have comfort mode, sport mode, and advanced mode. Comfort mode is a little bit too soft for me in daily driving, so I usually keep it in sport. Advanced, use this if you're on a track or whipping up a back road. Next up, we have this aftermarket Alpine CarPlay head unit. Not the biggest fan of how it looks, but the functionality is appreciated. And to the left of that, empty slot here, characteristic of P2s. It might seem useless at first. You could put a cup holder in there, but what I like is being able to just take my phone and slide it in there, and then I can just plug it into CarPlay. That way, my cup holders are still free. And unlike G46 BMW, which is competed against, it actually has cup holders. And moving down below to the climate panel. And this is actually one of my favorite features because it's so easy to use. Automatic climate control, which I appreciate. Recirculate. Everything's a button. Unlike today's cars where it's all inside this thing. And below that, a row of buttons. Headrest fold, traction control, valet mode, mirrors, alarm. This is a control for the subwoofer in the trunk, and this is a all-wheel drive kill switch, both aftermarket. This little thing right here is another thing where people get confused with, but what this actually is a pen holder. And right behind that is the 6-speed manual transmission. It's called the Spaceball as it does not have a leather boot. And moving behind here, 2 cup holders, but unfortunately, they do not pass Shooting Car's big freaking bottle test. Another thing I like, hand brake, not foot brake, not finger brake, hand brake. And behind there, center console, but this thing I've packed full of my candy as I take this car on road trips quite often. And yeah, that should be it for the interior. Rear seat, not much to talk about. It's just, it fits 2 people just fine. Try and put a third in there though and it gets cramped. All right, let's go take her for a drive. starting the 2004 S60R. Put her in neutral, clutch down. Hear the 5-cylinder roar to life. And we're gonna start her off in comfort mode. Excuse the clunky struts. Taking her nice and slow to warm up that oil a little bit. I don't know if you heard that, but there was a nice little blow off there. Nice easy engagement of the clutch. Shifter can be a little bit temperamental when it's not warmed. Got to start off with a little bit of neighborhood driving and then get on some roads. Driving in the neighborhood in the S60R. In comfort mode, it's not the most comfortable car in the world, but then again, that's not really what this car is about. Steering, still nice and light. Not much feel in comfort mode, but that's kind of what you want. Throttle mapping doesn't change between comfort and sport mode, only advanced. It has a little more. And also it holds the revs when you shift in advanced mode, which is kind of nice. Another thing in comfort mode that I don't really like is this car just gets a little floaty sometimes in comfort days. Like when I'm going over a bump or something, it just floats over it. You'll feel it get a little unsteady at first, but it'll work itself out. One other thing that doesn't really get much appreciation, but I like, is the nice quiet turn signal sound. It's not like a Hyundai or Kia where they're just like blaring at you and it gets annoying. This car competed against the BMW 330i of the E46 generation, the Audi S4 of the B6 generation and B7 generation, Cadillac CTS-V, and basically any car from that segment. And those were really good cars too. Volvo had stiff competition. And apparently, they spent more on this car than they made back. Only 10,000 S60Rs were ever made. 3,000 of them were manual, 7,000 of them were automatic. Powering this car is a 2.5 liter, 5-cylinder engine, producing 300 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque stock. Plenty of get up and go for a compact luxury sedan like this. And we got some speed bumps up ahead. So now we'll actually get to see what I mean when the car gets a little floaty. Step on those brakes.
Especially that return when the suspension comes back.
Yeah, the rebound.
It does get real floaty.
Get on those brakes. Brake pedal is nice and firm, which I really like. None of that soft brake pedal action from American cars, which I'm not a big fan of. Keep it in third gear. And another nice thing about this engine is that since there's so much torque down low, you don't even have to rev it that high to get power out of it. It's got a nice meaty mid-range and a low end that can actually get out of its own way. The issue with the E46 M3 is that it was naturally aspirated. Sure, it revs to 9,000 RPM, but at what cost? You had to rev it out to 4,000 to even go anywhere, and had to rev it out to 8,000 if you needed to merge or something. This car, nada. This is one of the only turbocharged cars in its segment as well. All right, so we'll switch her into sport mode. Can't really feel this on camera, but the ride firmed up, steering more responsive now. Doesn't change the engine and transmission tuning, which is kind of nice. But this is my preferred driving mode. It's not too stiff as to where it shakes your bones out, but it's just stiff enough as to where you feel in control of the car. Later on, we'll find a more suitable road and put it into advanced mode. And another thing about having a nice turbocharged engine with nice low-end torque is that it's not that hard to hill start. Clutch is nice and easy. It's not like an on-off switch. It's where you'll mess up your hill starts. Demonstrating a little hill here. And one issue I have with this car sometimes when shifting is very rarely does this happen, but sometimes I tend to grind into third. Could be a synchro, or just could be me not letting the clutch out quick enough. And this car, unlike the BMWs and Audis, does not have a clutch delay valve. Right, we'll give her a little pull once we get out of this light here. That was about 50% throttle. And what I didn't mention yet is this car has a Stage II Tune, which means it is producing 350 horsepower to the wheels, which equates to around 430 horsepower at the crank, and the same amount of torque. And what that means is when you're feeling a little excited, when you want to drop down 3 gears, punch it, and she really moves. It's kind of red, warning you that if you want your mommy, don't use this mode. You can already tell, throttle's more responsive. And I'm gonna do a little demonstration. Look at how much I'm turning the wheel and look at how much the car moves. I only turned it like 5 degrees and there's no dead on center feel in this car. Steering has gotten heavier, steering feel has improved. Suspension feels like coilovers when you're in advanced mode like this. But this gives me the chance to demonstrate one of the biggest weaknesses of this car, and that is its absolutely horrid turning circle. Here's a demonstration coming right up. Normally, even my dad's Audi would be able to make this turn, but full lock, nope, I have to reverse. And other things I don't really like about this car. As I mentioned, this gearbox, when it's cold, it can sometimes be a little bit difficult to shift, but once you warm it up, it's fine, and that could be just due to the fluid I'm using in it. Another pet peeve I have with this car is sort of some of the issues that come up with the suspension. This 4C suspension, although it is really, really good at sporty driving, it can be quite punishing when in advanced mode, and also it costs about $1,000 to replace. And that's by doing it myself. That's not even taking it to a shop. Take it to a shop, they're probably charging you at least $500 in labor as well with that. But in my opinion, it's well worth it. And it was also one of the first applications of adaptive suspension in a road car. And another thing I forgot to mention is these heated seats, they come on automatically depending on what temperature. If it's under 40 degrees Fahrenheit, they'll come on full blast. And between 40 and 50, they'll go half.
And are those heating pads, or are they aircon through the seat?
Heating pads.
All right.
And another thing I like about this car is its ability to be soft when it wants to be tame. I road trip this car quite often, and even my dad's Audi feels stiffer than this. The seats, though they do look nice in that car, they can be a little bit punishing at times when my back can get sore. These seats are supremely comfortable. I've driven this car for hours on end and I've not gotten sore from them. The rear seat, my friends have said, is like a couch. Extremely thick and a bunch of cushioning. That's one of Volvo's strong suits, and I've noticed from all Volvos I've driven. But something sad about the Rs that I've noticed is that nobody ever really saw them. Nobody ever really knows these cars, and even if you present these cars to a Volvo enthusiast, some of them still might not know what this car is truly capable of. You'll see some of these people call these cars crap boxes because they're too stiff. Some of them will call them, oh, it's slower than an M3. Some will say this car it's too expensive, which yes, I suppose it was. It was $39,000 in 2004 money, which equates to around $63,000 in 2024 money. So this car was not cheap, but what you got a car that could do almost everything well. It's a jack of all trades, a master of none. And that's what you want with an only car. All right, now this was the road I was looking for. And as you can feel, really stiff and buttoned down.
So trust me when I say the bumps in the road feel rather jagged and advanced.
We're feeling every single bump. Let's put it right into sport.
Whoa.
And there's a difference for sure.
And the road is like that the entire way through.
Let's put it into comfort. Yep.
A little bit, yeah.
When people say there's no difference between these modes, they're lying. So I just went through all 3 modes on this road, and there was a difference. Nice little heel toe. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention is that this car has a short throw shifter. Normally you'd find a much longer throw, and also this shift knob is not stock, but I actually like this one. One common mod for people to do is get rid of the space ball and replace it with a leather boot. I decided against that, partly because to keep this looking a little bit OEM. And another reason, the space ball is easier to clean and it doesn't wear out like a leather knob does. When a leather knob wears out, I'm sure some of you have seen this on your own manual cars, they look horrible. The space ball doesn't do that, unless you somehow manage to drive a screwdriver through it or something like that. The question is, should you buy an S60R? And how much do they cost? So, these cars, you can typically find that you can find the lowest end automatic cars for around $3,000 to $5,000, and those are cars that need work. $7,000 to $12,000 will get you a good condition automatic transmission car with about 120 to 180,000 miles on it. $12,000 to $15,000 will get you into the manuals. And this car came with 104,000 miles on it when I got it. But since I drive a lot, I got this car in February of 2023. I managed to put 20,000 miles on the car. And do I regret a single one of them? Not at all. Let's do a nice little brake test here. That wasn't even full braking. Turbo. And by the end of 3rd gear, you're doing like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. Obviously, we didn't do that here.
And should you buy an S60R? It really depends on what type of person you are. If you're someone who's into cars, who likes modifying them, who likes maintaining them, then this is the car for you. This is not your traditional Volvo V70 that you can just drive. And future plans I have for this car. So a few issues I have right now is my right headlight does not work. I have parts on order for that. And my fog lights. It's sort of a bad design, so I'll eventually be LED swapping those fog lights. They'll last longer, and they can actually take a little bit of weather. And the other things I want to do to this car is basically restore this thing cosmetically. There are some cosmetic flaws with the car. Leather seats are a little worn out, but my goal is make this car a little bit more like new. Erase some of those miles off the clock. But other than that, stay tuned. Next thing we have is a 125,000 mile service, and you'll love to see that. Thank you. We'll see you in the next one.